We're going to be starting the program very soon, so if we can have the brothers to the left of the table, inshallah, and try to get closer in so we can benefit more. Yes, for anyone who didn't get a chance to hear, this program is going to be around answering questions that anybody has for Ramadan, for doing everything in Ramadan in the best way possible. So, inshallah, very beneficial for all of us.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. The Sheikh is going to be here in a few minutes, 5-10 minutes, and we have a QR code and a Google form where you could give your questions anonymously for technical questions regarding Ramadan and other questions. We have already sent that to the people who registered. We already have a few questions, but if you want to send your questions, this is an opportunity to scan the QR code. We'll get that out soon, inshallah.
I have it in the office.
So we're going to get the QR code out now for you guys to ask any questions, and the Sheikh, inshallah, will answer in a few minutes when he arrives. Sisters go there.
I'll get to.
Can you give this QR code to sister? Can you paste it there, or do you have a sticker?
Yeah, I mean,
So we're going to paste a QR code on the sister side in case they want to ask questions, and also give some papers on the sister side as well. And inshallah, then we have a QR code here as well. Let's just do it here.
Oh, sure.
Keep it simple. So anyone who wants to ask questions through the QR code or through a pen and paper, we have both available.
I have. If they have pens, otherwise I don't.
So the Sheikh is a few minutes late. He will be here in another 5-10 minutes, inshallah, and then we'll get started. So we have pen and paper in case you want to ask anonymous questions and put it in a box. We also have a QR code. We'll give one to the sisters as well, so they can ask any questions. Oh yeah, we were just getting the pen. A pen hai? Saath mein I think there's more sisters. And all brothers are requested if they can move to the right side, this side, which is the left of the hall, because we're going to have a partition so sisters can sit on the left side. When you write it, you can just put it in here. एक बॉक्स ना कैसे कर दें इसको आप ये हाथ से लिख के इसमें डाल दें नहीं इसको करना होगा अच्छा आप कैमरा लें ना अपना नॉर्मल उसके आगे रखिए इसके बिल्कुल हाँ थोड़ा सा पीछे करें अब आया ना ये ये इसको ये येलो, इस येलो को दबाएं हाथ से, बस इसको उंगली रख के, हाँ बस ये उस पर चला जाएगा। अब आप अपना क्वेश्चन यहाँ लिख सकते हैं। अब वो भाई उठ जाए अगर। अस्सलाम वालेकुम, how are you? Yeah? Abdullah, so yeah, he's coming here. So you can ask any question through the QR code anonymously or through the. Yeah, or just.
There's going to be some slides.
Assalamu alaikum. We're going to have some slides. So request is if sisters want to look at the slides, they can come on the sister side on the left. Their brothers will be vacating that spot. That way you could see the slides and ask questions, inshallah. If you're comfortable coming up, that would be great. Jazakallah. Jazakallah khair, brothers. If you could leave the sister side and come on this side, inshallah. We're going to get started soon. A bit more than 4 weeks in a month. 4.5. Yeah, 4.5. So the Sheikh will be here soon. He had a bit of a family emergency, so he had to delay by 10-15 minutes. Inshallah, he'll get here by 10-15. But this gives you guys the opportunity to ask any questions using the QR code, as well as the box in the front. The sisters can use that box and post their questions anonymously. You want to just give it in the back, and let's see if they come to the front. उनको आने दें पहले. Let's see if they come. Yes, you can do both. You can do it on the pen and paper as well if you want. I think we need one there, we need one here. Do any of the sisters need the QR code to ask the question? Because we put it in the back. We have one QR code here as well. Or just raise your hand if you need the QR code, and we can get it over to you guys as well. Or we have a pen and paper. You can put anonymous questions in the box. I just want you guys to be aware. We'll just put the QR code behind the barrier so you guys can do it from here.
Submit your time to get taken down. Now it's your turn. What's the step? You go down the stairs.
इस वीक पे हमारे पास प्रोग्राम है and Thursday को first day training है, right? Those are the only two things.
Try getting me down. I have
And
strong
then
legs.
Ramadan किस दिन start हो रहा है? Yeah, so I think
Yeah,
you
you're
can just
stronger.
announce the two programs that people are here. They're talking कि अगले हफ्ते ये हो रहे हैं, इनका benefit क्या है? The Quran and here and then किस दिन तरावी होगी रात को? Why don't you just announce that? That makes sense.
Run away.
While we're waiting, I just want to give an update on upcoming programs. So I guess most important for everybody here, inshallah, we're going to be starting Taraweeh on March 11th. Or sorry, March 10th, and March 11th will be the first of Ramadan. That's what I meant. So March 10th night will be the first Taraweeh, and inshallah, March 11th will be the first of Ramadan. But before that, we've got a bunch of exciting programs. So inshallah, this coming week, we've got a very famous Qari, Muhammad Jibril. I'm sure some of you might know him, Qari Muhammad Jibril. I believe he's Egyptian. But he's very well known, and he will be coming to MNN, inshallah. And he will be doing some recitation and some other activities, inshallah, doing dua. And the program is a fundraiser for Palestine as well. So this is, inshallah, on Monday, March 4th. So not this week, but the following week, Monday, March 4th, inshallah, after Isha. So that will be Qari Muhammad Jibril, Monday, March 4th. And then this coming Thursday after Isha, we are going to be having a basic first aid program. So the basics of first aid, common emergencies that you might deal with, like choking, fainting, things like that. And it's open to everybody. So this is really important information that could basically save a life, in the event that it shows up. So this is also another great idea. So that's inshallah this coming Thursday on the 28th or 29th, I think. 29th, at after Isha, so at 8 o'clock, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah, the Sheikh will be here in another 5 minutes. He's just running late for an emergency that came up. For anyone who has recently arrived, we will be starting our Ramadan Fiqh intensive program, inshallah, in another 5 minutes or so. But if anybody has any questions and they want to submit it anonymously, we've got these drop boxes on both sides, and then we have QR codes as well, so you can scan and submit your questions anonymously.
Assalamu alaikum. The Sheikh just confirmed he's He's outside, inshallah. Within 2 minutes, he'll be inside. Apologies for the delay. He had a family emergency, so he had to do something before he gets here. So inshallah, we'll be starting soon. Again, a reminder, if you want to use the QR code to ask a question or drop a question in the box anonymously, this is the time to do so, inshallah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, thank you. Jazakallah khair. Actually, I'll put it like. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Apologies for the delay there. Sorry, there was a slight family urgency. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so by now, I'm sure many of you have been getting into the Ramadan spirit and hearing about lectures, talking about the virtues of Ramadan. Let me ask, have you guys had any lectures so far on the virtues of Ramadan? Three, four. Okay, you guys covered that? So today what we're going to do is it's basically going to be a fasting and Ramadan fiqh intensive. Okay? There's a lot of information that we're going to put out today. And we're basically condensing 4 classes into an intensive session today. These 4 intensives or intensive classes, what we're going to do is speak about the fiqh of Ramadan. So our point today is not to speak about the spirituality of it. Today we are speaking about the rules themselves. And when we speak about the rules, you'll have a chance to ask questions because it is something that is very important. So for example, you have people who come to scholars, imams, and they say, you know, I've been doing XYZ for so many years during Ramadan, and is my fast valid? And I have to tell them, I'm sorry, there is no opinion that I know in which your fast is valid. But I've been doing that for my whole life. And I have to say, Allah is merciful and forgiving, but according to the scholars, you would have to make up those fasts. Maybe because you didn't know, that's between you and Allah sin-wise. So how can we avoid these situations? By learning the laws of fasting. In fact, it is fard. Because fasting is fard in Ramadan, it is also fard to know how to fast and what breaks the fast, right? Now, we're going to zip through a bunch of these because we've spoken, I think you guys have heard about the idea of what fasting is supposed to achieve. And you also have a chance to ask questions. So while we're on a certain topic, if there's any question that you have, feel free to just put up your hand and we can deal with the question at that time. If you have an anonymous question, feel free as well to ask. We have the QR code or something? Do we have it? Okay, you already announced that. Good. So that's another thing. And there is no question that is off limits. I want to be very clear that there is no question, even if it's of a sexual nature, of a nature about menstruation, discharge, these types of things. In fact, we have to discuss these things. The idea, there is a saying, La haya'a fil ilm. There is no modesty when it comes to seeking knowledge. You can be shy in front of each other, and there's a natural shyness that is praiseworthy in Islam. But when it comes to asking a question that you have, and these are things also that our children need to know. And I'm going to start with an example that's going to be jarring, okay? But why you need to know this example. An adult woman asked me a question. She grew up in a Muslim country and went to an Islamic high school. And she said, I want to ask a question. I did not know that the secret habit is something that breaks your fast. You guys know what I'm talking about, secret habit, right? Okay, she did not understand that masturbation breaks your fast. She said, when all through my high school years in Ramadan, I would start the fast with my family at Fajr, then go to school. Then she would go in the washroom and do this act, breaking her fast. And she did this day after day after day for all of Ramadan, for all the years of high school. What am I supposed to tell someone like this? And this is a person who grew up in a Muslim country in an Islamic high school. But they were too shy or modest to discuss the laws clearly with their youth. So their youth were actually sometimes invalidating their fasts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O you who believe, fasting has been written for you the way that it was written for those before you, that perhaps you may become God conscious. This is the proof that fasting is fard. This idea, for example, when I first became Muslim and I started to fast, my mother, who's not a Muslim yet, make dua for her, she came and she said to me, why are you fasting? She says in Urdu, ye roza kyun rakh rahe ho? And I said, this is what Muslims do, we fast. She said, no, I have ladies at my work and they only fast for the first day of Ramadan and then they skip it for the rest of the whole month. And I said, Mom, you have to tell them. You have to tell those Muslims that that's wrong. You should be fasting every single day. So there is even a confusion on this basic point. What is fasting fard? Yes, of course. It's not something where you choose to do it sometimes and you choose not to do it at other times. We could go through the other ayat of Quran, but we want to get right down to the fiqh of it. And we're going to explain the fiqh of the ayat of Quran, so don't worry, we'll get back to it. But one thing I do want to say is that the Prophet ﷺ said, every act of the child of Adam, male or female, is for themselves. A good deed is given the like of times 10 reward, up to 700 times multiplied. Every good deed you do. But Allah, mighty and majestic, says, except for fasting. Fasting is for me. It is for me. As-sawmu li wa ana ujzi bih. And I myself give its reward. That person left their desires for me, their food and their drink just for my sake. Right? So that hadith tells us right away that fasting has a reward that you cannot even imagine or calculate. Allah does not want to put a number on it. It's a number or an amount that only Allah knows. And Allah is saying fasting is so dear to me. So before you have to think about this, when you think, oh, there's a wedding coming up, or there's something I want to do, maybe I shouldn't fast, ask yourself, if fasting is so dear to Allah that He will not even calculate it the way He calculates other things, is it worth skipping your fast? Then the Prophet ﷺ also said, the fasting person has two immense joys. One immense joy when they break their fast, the feeling of relief when you eat something after a long day, and an immense joy when you meet your Lord. And the breath of a fasting person is more fragrant to Allah than the scent of musk. So what's the first question that comes up when you read this hadith? Fiqh question. What often comes up? Can you brush your teeth during fasting? Because naturally, with every single human being, there is a smell that comes out of your mouth, especially towards the end of the day, right? Sometimes you have to remember, you can smell the smell often, but others cannot smell the smell. So you get more conscious of yourself. Now, can you brush your teeth during fasting? The answer is yes, you can. However, you have to be careful that the toothpaste that you use, that you don't swallow it. But if the flavor of the toothpaste remains in your mouth after you rinse your mouth, this is forgiven. And even the water that you rinsed your mouth, once you spit out the water, whatever leftover moisture, that is forgiven as well, right? So that's one of the questions that especially people who go to work or to school in the morning, they want to know. Okay, now let's get to... And the reason why I want to emphasize, except for fasting, it is for me, Allah says, I myself give its reward, is to realize as well that fasting and everything we're talking about here is not mechanical. It's to draw nearer to Allah with love. So what we're going to cover today, what is fasting? What do we mean by fasting? Right? Is it just like a diet? And who is addressed by the command to fast? Are children addressed by the command to fast? Sick people? So who must fast? And then timings of the fast, determining Ramadan. We won't get into determining Ramadan, but we'll talk about the timings and conditions for fasting correctly. So what is fasting? It is having an intention to worship Allah and by refraining during the daytime from entering anything outside of the body into the inside of the body through a considered opening. And we'll talk about this, right? So what does it mean? You cannot just say, if somebody didn't eat, but they were not intending to fast Ramadan, that person did not fast in Ramadan. So if you just say, oh, I forgot, I didn't know it was Ramadan, but I haven't had any food, and the whole day went by. Did they fast? No, because you have to have what? Intention for Allah. So this is something that's very important. Intention for Allah. Or let's say someone does fast, but they are fasting for a different reason. So they say, we're not fasting, they're not fasting Ramadan, but they're fasting for a political hunger strike. Does that count as a fast? No. No, you cannot say, I'm fasting, and I'm not fasting for God today, I'm fasting for political reason XYZ. Right? The next thing is this. Or you say that I'm doing a health fast. It's a health dietary fast. Does that count as a fast? No. So your primary intention has to be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's about refraining from the daytime, from anything outside coming to inside. Just remember this. Through a considered opening. Not every opening in your body is considered a place where food enters your body. So for example, there are differences of opinion. By the way, what I will say, all of what I'm going to say today, there are differences of opinion between the scholars. So if you heard something else from another scholar or another school of thought, you can bring it up, but remember that there are differences. So for example, does the ear have any connection to the stomach? No. So generally speaking, a very strong opinion is that if you put something inside your ear, like you put your finger in your ear or something, it's not going to break your fast. There is, then they get into the exceptions, but we're not going to worry about the exception. If your auditory canal, your ear canal has a hole in it or something like that, that's not what we're talking about, right? So it has to be a considered opening. Okay, same with your eyes. Does your eyes have any sort of connection to your throat? Actually, interestingly, if you put kuhl in your eyes, kuhl or surma in your eyes, you'll taste it in the back of your throat. The ulama talk about that. That's why tears, if you stop yourself from crying, have you ever wanted to cry and you stop yourself? All of a sudden your nose will start running. Why? Because the tears come into here. But they say, still, if you put eye drops in your eye, it does not break your fast. What's the proof? Why? Even though they can come in, you can taste sometimes. Why? Because Rasulullah ﷺ used to use kuhl in his eyes during fasting and it never counts. So not every single technical thing will count. And you have to not only from stopping from entering anything inside your body through a considered opening, and from sexual relations or sexual gratification. And we're going to go into a little bit of those details. By someone who is legally capable of fasting, except in the presence of a valid excuse, such as menstruation, such as childbirth bleeding. So the two pillars, all you have to remember is this: abstain from the desires of the stomach and the desires of the private parts. Anything that's going to lead to those two things, if you're ever unsure and you don't know what the answer is, just go back. Is this going to satisfy my stomach, or is this going to satisfy my private parts, right? Now, so fasting is fard on anyone who is, number one, Muslim. So non-Muslims, when you go to university and they have a fastathon, and the Muslims try out non-Muslim tries out fasting, it's very good for them to try fasting. Before I became Muslim, I did try fasting as well. And in fact, this is actually a good way of cleansing yourself to draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and get the guidance from Quran and Sunnah. But they don't have a valid fast. So you could say, I have a Christian friend and they're fasting. Actually, technically, they don't have a valid fast because it is to Muslims. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam. The next one is, so then this is another thing actually. Sometimes you have family members, unfortunately, may Allah protect, they left Islam, they're secular, they're atheists. And still people are forcing them to fast because they're in a Muslim country. Technically, they don't have a fast anyways, right? They should still respect the laws of a Muslim country, but technically they don't have a fast. Next thing is this: they have to have sound mental capacity. That is determined by, are you aware of what you're doing? Do you have the sanity or the mental capacity to understand what you're doing, to be morally responsible? So for example, sometimes you may have someone who has a mental disability, for example. If it's a slight disability where they can manage their affairs, they understand right from wrong, they're able to manage their distinguish between things, this is fine, they can fast. However, you don't make a person who has a mental or developmental delay, you don't make them fast. This idea that someone has, we can name a number of different conditions, but I hope that makes sense. So they do not have to fast if they are technically not in a sane or mental capacity. The next thing is legally mature. So sometimes, and we did this for many years too, and we realized this is not the best thing to do when my kids were small, some of them. Sometimes we make our young children fast, 5 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old, and they're grabbing their stomach and they're crying. And sometimes it's good to make them fast to feel what it's like because they want to fast with everybody else. If your children grow up in a Muslim environment and they see you fasting, they'll actually say, no, I want to keep a fast. You'll say, no, fine. Have some milk, and then from Dhuhr time, you'll start your fast, right? So we don't force our children to fast. We encourage them when they get to 7 years old, 8 years old, they can physically take it, we encourage them. But before they're baligh, meaning before the woman has had her menstrual period, a girl has had her menstrual period, or a boy has had a wet dream or ejaculation, we can go a little flexible on this. So if they're tired, Baba, not today, or something like that, they're feeling weak, they're about to feel sick, don't force them to fast. In fact, in the Imam Malik's school of thought, he actually felt it was makruh, or it was not a good thing to make children fast, right? So one thing is people have to be legally mature. And that also means if your daughter gets her period at 11 years old, in the month of Ramadan, that means as soon as her period ends, in the month of Ramadan, she begins fasting, right? Or a 12-year-old, 11-year-old boy. So this is why we also need to educate our young people about what it means to be baligh. With the girls, it's very obvious. And the mothers often, the girl sees blood, so the mother takes her, explains things to her. But I'll be honest, because I have daughters, so I understand what that's like. But my sons, who are young, I'm still wondering how to have that talk with them. Why? Because culturally we are shy. But religiously we should not be shy, right? And what does that mean? That means your 11, 12-year-old boys need to know about this idea of a wet dream, about ejaculation, that you would have to start fasting. Otherwise, what happens? I have adults coming to me. Nobody told me until I was 15 years old I had to be fasting. I was baligh since I was 12. So make sure we don't do that to our kids and make them have to make up years of Ramadan. The next thing is, if they're a convert to Islam, and they converted to Islam in a non-Muslim country, like Canada, America, UK, and they didn't know that it was obligatory to fast. Those people actually, they do not have to fast until the dawah of Islam and the knowledge reaches them, right? Sometimes somebody becomes Muslim on the internet. They didn't know anything about Muslims. Do they have to make up the years of fasting that they didn't even know that fasting was fard? No. But they should have gone to seek knowledge to learn about their deen. That's what we're doing now. However, somebody who says, a born Muslim, who says, my parents never raised me to fast. We weren't practicing. We're Muslim, but that's it. Do they have to make up their fast? What do you think? They do have to make up their fast. Why? Because first of all, their parents, it was their obligation to teach their children. But also once that person became baligh, an adult, then they themselves should have said, I'm Muslim. Perhaps there are Muslims around me. I should have asked them. And somebody who becomes Muslim in a Muslim country has no excuse because everybody's fasting around you, right? Now, who must fast in Ramadan? Someone who is healthy enough. So if you're Muslim, sane, adult, also you have to be healthy enough to fast. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not prescribe for someone. You know, sometimes you see, mashallah, senior person, and they've been fasting their whole life. And the doctor says to them, do not fast. It's not healthy for you to fast. Or a woman, she has given birth to, she's just come off of her nifas, which is the bleeding that occurs after pregnancy. And the doctor says, you need to recuperate. You're breastfeeding. You do not need to fast. That person, it's actually wajib to see if fasting is going to harm me, it's sinful for you to fast. So this idea, no, I'm going to fast. My iman says I have to fast. Actually, they are not actually submitting to the law of Allah. They are saying, I'm so accustomed to fasting, I can't let go of fasting. Even when Allah says you don't have to fast. Even when Allah says that. So part of Islam is submitting to Allah whenever the command comes, even if it's not the way that we prefer it. Right? Also, yes, question. It is difficult, but you know the beauty of it? That's why the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if any believer is accustomed to a certain act of worship, and then because of travel or sickness or old age, to the near meaning, they're not able to perform it, that senior citizen, that sick person, that they still get the reward. So they don't have to fast, but Allah knows they wish they could fast. And this is the whole point, right? But what I would suggest in those cases, if there's not a clear harm, then say, okay, I'll fast on this day, take a break this day. They can do that for their health, right? The next thing is you have to be free from menstruation or post-childbirth bleeding. That means that a woman could say, oh, the period came in the month of Ramadan, last 10 nights of Ramadan, period came. I don't have to make them up. Can I just fast anyways? I don't want after, now everyone's waking up for suhoor, we're having great iftars. I'm going to be making up my fast alone by myself rest of the year. Can I just not just do it? And the answer is no, right? The answer is no. However, remember that sometimes women get very confused because they have irregular bleeding outside of their period. And they're afraid, can I still fast? The answer is if it's irregular bleeding outside of the period, you still must fast. Okay? We're just talking about the days of your period. Once that goes out of the days of your period, the maximum days, you still have to go back to fasting, even if bleeding is still coming. And we can answer more questions about that now or later on, inshallah. By the way, about post-birth child bleeding. Post-childbirth bleeding. In some of our cultures, there is a misconception that the bleeding, that a woman for a chilla for 40 days absolutely cannot fast or pray. And this is not the case. It's when the bleeding after delivery stops, she takes a ghusl, even if it's after 1 day or 10 days, and she goes back. This idea that, yes, up to 40 days, yes. But the idea that you have to do the whole chilla, she can't even take a bath normally. No, this is cultural. This is actually a type of ignorance of the law. And the other thing is, who must fast in Ramadan? Someone who's not traveling. So let me ask you this question. If you decide that you're going to go on a work trip in the middle of Ramadan, and it's going to be difficult, can you not fast? Yes, you can choose not to fast. You can choose not to fast. If you're a traveler, and the day has started while you're a traveler, you can choose not to fast that day. What happens if you're just going to attend an event, or you're going, actually, let's say the company is going for a cruise? Just total vacation. As a traveler, can you not fast then? What do you think? Exactly. So whether you're going for any reason, once you are technically a traveler, meaning you're traveling more than 77 kilometers outside of your hometown, you do not have to fast. If you do keep the fast, it's valid, it's good, but you do not have to do it, right? Okay, who cannot fast? Excuses that allow one to make up the fast. So we said if you're too sick or weak, or including old age, right? Yes, question. Every fast that you miss has to be made up. Okay, every fast that you miss has to, there's no such thing. Like, for example, a woman who has menstruation, she doesn't make up her prayers, but she makes up her fasts. Okay? So, the next thing is being a traveler. So he said they don't have to fast. Now, it's up to a limited days. So if you go back to Pakistan, let's say, and you go to Lahore, and you're there for 1 week, you can choose that you don't want to fast for that 1 week. Okay? But if you're there for 15 days or more, and there's different opinions about how many days, but this is one of the most expansive ones, then you are not a traveler anymore. Once you spend more than 15 days in a place, you are not a traveler anymore. You have to fast in that place. Okay? And menstruation, post-childbirth bleeding, we talked about this. And then external considerations, such as pregnancy. So this question comes up a lot. Okay? And that question is this. The woman is expecting, and you see this often. You know, she tried to fast because everybody else is fasting around her. I don't want to miss all my fasts. But then what happens? She's feeling dizzy in the middle of the day. Then she kind of almost wants to faint. Then you're bringing her water, and then you're bringing her food. Are you okay? So you don't want to get to this point. May Allah bless the sisters who want to fast. May Allah bless them. They get the reward, but it's better at that point to either not fast if you fear this, or to, if you're feeling like you're dizzy, or you think, for example, contractions will come on, or your child will be harmed, you feel like your child will not get enough nutrients. Is it running out? That's much better. It's digging into it. Bismillah. So the question now is about pregnancy and fasting. I'm going to be very honest with you. Some of our scholars, I feel, are too strict on pregnant women and the lactating women. They say you have to fast except until you can't do it. You know there's going to be harm. But the Prophet ﷺ clearly said that there is an allowance for pregnant women, and did not say, oh, at what point? Once you feel, you know your body, right? Sisters know their bodies. Do not allow social aspects to confuse you. Do not let guilt confuse you, because there's no guilt whatsoever, right? It's far better that you break your fast, or you don't fast, or you fast one day, then take some breaks, than something like early contractions or less nutrients to the baby or something like that. If you feel strong enough, then go right ahead. That's up to you. Any questions about that? Okay. Next thing is looking at the timings of the fast. What is the daytime referred to? What's the defined period? It is what you call true dawn. The second that Fajr enters is when your fast begins. The second that Fajr enters. So some people make a lot of mistakes on the start time. Now, there's different degrees of Fajr. We won't go into that, right? Because we have a prayer time calendar. So this is what we say. When your community, because there's 18 degrees, 15 degrees, Qura, Karachi Institute of Islamic Sciences, which one are you going to follow? This is what I say to those people who are not scholars, is you follow your community. Because our point is not to fight between, moon fighting and all these types of things. If you have one community, everybody breaks their fast at the same time. When you're home in Fajr time, suhoor, you end suhoor right when Fajr begins. And sunset Maghrib is when the sun completely goes below the horizon. There's some mistakes made as well on this, where people look outside and there's a whole bunch of buildings. I can't see the sun. So that's it. It's fine. And this has happened. And actually there's some opinion like this as well. But really Maghrib time comes in when the sun completely sets. Nowadays we have timetables. Now here's the question, 2 questions. Number 1, sometimes timetables differ. So my app, my Muslim Pro app, is saying I have 1 minute left till iftar. And the MNN Masjid app is Masjid list is saying there's 2 minutes left for iftar. Which one is correct? Always MNN, right? No. Honestly, we are at the end of the day, we are not calculating ourselves. So there's no way that I can actually tell who's right and who's wrong. So therefore, whichever one you follow, once you're following some type of opinion, we hope in the eyes of Allah we have done our duty. But when it comes to the masjid or a congregation, you should not create division in the ummah by saying, no, I have an app. So the adhan is about to go off. You say, no, my app is saying still 5 minutes. Wait, just for caution. And then you end up, you're not supposed to delay the breaking of the fast when you know it comes. But then you say, oh, this app, until you're 10 minutes too late. No, this is not what we do. Now here's the other question. And this is a question that in the Indo-Pak subcontinent is a very common question. Can you, once the adhan of Fajr starts to go, can you eat until the end of the adhan? How many people think yes, you can? How many people think yes, you can? It's okay if you think yeah, yes, no? Okay. And how many people think no, you cannot? Okay. This has been a matter of some debate. So traditional classical opinions will say that once the second of Fajr comes in, you have to put down whatever. If it's already in your throat, beyond the point where you're like this, okay, swallow what's in your throat. But if it's in your mouth, or not even in your mouth, then you cannot. Because that's the point where Fajr begins. Because when you talk about now, what about this idea that, but wait a second, what about empty your vessel when you hear, because in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were 2 adhans. Just like right now in the Haram, Mecca and Medina, there are 2 adhans. One for what? Tahajjud. It's a warning to everyone that if you are praying Tahajjud, wrap it up now. Or if you are eating suhoor, start and end, finish now. So even in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a previous adhan that would be given to tell people it's about like we're wrapping up. And then when the adhan would come right at that moment, that was when you have to stop. Now, if you've been doing this for your whole life before, this is another issue. So some scholars will say you have to make it all up. Others will say, well, you didn't know. The point is this, that now that you know, do not do that. If you think that you're going to go over a little bit, then just end a little bit before. That's why some of the calendars, they have what they call imsak time. Technically, there's no imsak time. Like 5 minutes before, they want you to stop. In fact, when I used to live in Jordan and some other countries, they do this thing where they play the adhan a few minutes before Fajr actually. Why? Because they know people are going to go over. And so your fast is not in an invalid state. They do this. But that also means, right, when you hear the adhan, don't pray Fajr right on that moment. Right? Because, sometimes if you're in a Muslim country. Any questions about that? Okay. Okay, we're not going to talk about the lunar calendar because we know here, we've already decided how they do calculation. And that's fine. The masjid I'm at, they do that too. And you're going to hear people saying this and the fatwas are going to go around, but it's not worth dividing the community, right? Okay. Yawm al-Shak, we don't have to worry about either. Okay, so the conditions for fasting correctly. Number one, you have to have a niyyah, an intention. And we'll talk about what the intention is in a second. Then you have to be free from menses or childbirth, and you have to not do anything to invalidate the fast. Now, it is not a condition of starting the fast that you have to be in a state of major ritual impurity. So you know what they call janaba? After sexual intercourse, after orgasm, after ejaculation, you're in janaba. You're in a ritually impure state. Can you start your fast in that state? Yes, you can. A lot of people get mixed up with this. So I'm just going to be very explicit here to an extent I have to be. Husband and wife were intimate in the night of Ramadan. Oftentimes this is what happens. The woman wakes up and she says, oh, I have not taken my shower yet. But there's only enough time. Either I have to prepare suhoor for the family or I have to go take a ghusl. Which one do I do? Sometimes a man wakes up and he thinks, I have to prepare suhoor or I have to take a ghusl. And so they say, I'll quickly try to take a ghusl, and they miss their suhoor. You don't have to rush. You can take your ghusl after suhoor as well. So what you cannot do, because you are already in that state, you entered fasting. But during your fast, you cannot go into that state from purity. Okay? Does that make sense? Yes? If anybody has follow-up questions, we can do that. Now, what does it mean to have intention? Let me ask you all. What does it mean to have intention? Do you have to say, Nawaitu sawma fardin Ramadan? No? That's it. Just the thought, I'm going to fast, is your intention. Setting your alarm before you go to sleep to wake up for suhoor, that's an intention. Some people, actually, they get it wrong. So it's resolve in the heart to do an act for Allah Most High. Knowing deep inside what you're going to do. So if someone was going to ask you, what are you going to do tomorrow? Of course, fast. That's your intention. That means it's in your mind. It does not have to, or you're doing other things that indicate it. You're preparing the halim and you're setting it. You're putting on an alarm. That's an intention to fast, right? What intention is not? It's not necessary to say it on the tongue on a verbal formula. Sometimes you have children, they grew up going to maktab or madrasa, and they're taught to say a certain formula. You do not need to do that. Or it's not a mental thought. Wait, my intention is not right because I'm getting other thoughts in my mind. Oh, the pictures are coming in food. No, I don't want food pictures. That's not intention. So there are actually people who have OCD, and I'm an OCD counselor, so I deal with this every day. There's people who have waswasa, and they think intention has to be like a thought in their mind. Not necessarily. It can be, but not necessarily. Next thing is timing of intention. Each day of Ramadan requires its own intention. Every day you have to have the intent, the niyat, that tomorrow I'm going to fast, right? When do you do that? Ideally, it's the night before the fast. So after Maghrib, when you break your fast one day, next you should know, okay, I'm going to fast tomorrow, right? Once you know that, that's an intention. However, what happens if you went to sleep at Asr time and you woke up after Fajr the next day? Is it too late to intend to fast, or is still time? Who thinks it's too late? Put up your hand. Who thinks it's too late? It's okay, there's no right or wrong. We're trying to use our legal reasoning. Who thinks it's not too late? It's not too late. You're right, it's not too late. It is permissible until the mid-morning of the day to begin the Ramadan fast, as long as you didn't eat or drink or have sexual intercourse before that. So let's say, for example, Ramadan is called on, let's say, I don't know what date it's starting, let's say Monday, one Monday it's called. Or let's say, for example, Sunday night, Ramadan begins in the night. Next day, you meet a Muslim. Are you fasting? The next morning, in the morning time. Say, no, Ramadan started? I didn't even know. How often do you see this? They didn't even know Ramadan started. Okay, this usually would happen, you know when? Especially when you're doing a moon sighting. Like, oh, they didn't know. Did you see the moon or not? They didn't hear. Is it too late for that person? If they ate or drink in the morning, then they don't have a valid fast. But They still have to refrain from eating for the rest of the day out of respect for the month of Ramadan. Okay? But if they say, oh my gosh, I didn't even know it's Ramadan, but I didn't eat anything yet, I didn't drink, can I still fast? We say yes, start fasting from now. Okay? And keep it out, and that's a full fast, even though they didn't know. Next thing is this. In the Maliki school, Imam Malik's madhab, they actually say you don't have to intend every single night. Once Ramadan comes in, you just know you're going to fast the whole month, it's fine. So even if you didn't think about it. So this is like a backup, easier intention, but it's usually not a problem. Yes? Yes. So you could just say, I'm starting to fast because it's only mid-morning. So there's actually a technical calculation for how you get that. Basically, it's towards, so you cannot, if it's towards Dhuhr time, you would not be able to do that. So it's basically like 30, 40 minutes before Dhuhr time. It's too late at that point. It's the middle of the day. It's still the morning, right? And what's the proof of this? From the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he used to go to visit his wife's house in the morning time when the sun had come up. Say, is there anything to eat? No? Then I'm fasting. That's the proof that you could actually do it. Now, there are some, for a qada fast, if you're doing qada right now, so right now is a very good time until Ramadan, if you have not made up your fast, like sisters who are menstruating and they missed their fast, now is the time to Ummahatul Mu'mineen will make up their fast. So you have to have that intention from the night before. You cannot go in the morning because we're not in Ramadan. So you have to do it from the night before. Yes? You can start your suhoor at any time in the night, but you have to end it by right before, like basically at the second that Fajr comes in, you have to stop eating. But someone like you, right, ask your parents, maybe there's a little extra time that you can have until you're big, okay? No, definitely. For my kids as well, they do their suhoor when they're going to school. You wake up, have cereal, whatever, then you start fasting. How old are you? MashaAllah, may Allah reward you. Right now, you just follow your parents and you take it easy, okay? You can try. No, he said, no, I'm not. You see that? This is because Iman, when it's inside the heart of the child, MashaAllah, may Allah bless you and preserve our children. The children themselves will want to do this. When you come from a house where people are following deen, children themselves want to do it. But sometimes with gentleness, you also have to encourage them. Listen, take it a little easy, right? Alhamdulillah. Now, we're going to get to the next section, okay? And this section is called, what things break the fast? There are so many things that can potentially break the fast. We have to have it in organized fashion, okay? Excuse me. What we're going to look at this. Action. Okay, let's look at, before we get to that. There are some things which break the fast, and you have to pay a penalty called kafara. And you have to make up the fast as well. So whenever you miss a fast, you have to make it up. But sometimes, when you break the fast, it was for no good reason. Meaning Allah did not give you permission to break the fast. You have to pay what you call kafara. It's a penalty, and it's a very stiff penalty. What is the kafara? It is to fast, well, you free a slave, but there's no slaves now, alhamdulillah. So it is to fast for 60 days straight. One fast you break without permission. This shows you it is a deterrent. It is to make us say, you should not break your fast. Because you think, oh, I'm going to an office party, why don't I just break my fast? Or the person has lust for their spouse, just break the fast and have intercourse. No, you'll be doing a 60-day penalty. If you physically cannot fast 60 days straight, which many people cannot, then only then can you feed 60 poor people. But that's still a monetary penalty. So it's basically 60 poor people for 60 days. It counts about feeding them lunch and dinner, for example. And you don't have to worry about calculating that. All of the organizations of Islamic relief and these types of places, they have calculations, and you can just, if you have to do it, right? So there's the worst type of breaking the fast is when you have to pay the penalty and make up for the day. That's when you do it purposely, without a reason. But the second one is when you just have to make up the day, but you're not doing it in that sense. You didn't do it purposely, or you're not doing it illegally. You're not doing it the major things, okay? And the third one is, it does not even break the fast at all. So this is where we're going to clarify. Ready? The first category is eating and drinking. The second category is sexual gratification. Because remember, why did I say gratification and not intercourse? Because there's obviously other types of sexual activity that's not intercourse. Next thing is anything else entering the stomach. Okay, let's look at the first one. If you eat or drink anything that satisfies the desires of the stomach, that means you're going to have making up the day plus kafara. Okay, the next one. If you take a vitamin or an energy pill. So anyone who says, oh, I'm fasting, but I really have to take this energy pill or a vitamin, meaning you just want to do it. It's not a medicine or anything like that. That person would have to do a kafara and make up the day. In the next category, sexual gratification. If there's intentional sexual intercourse in the front or back passage, then this will be making up the day plus kafara. It's a major penalty. And so this is why as well, Ibn Abbas used to say, right? One man, a man came and asked Ibn Abbas, can you kiss your spouse while you're fasting? He said, yes, you can. And another person came and asked for the same fatwa. Oh, Ibn Abbas, can you kiss your spouse while you're fasting, meaning on the lips? And he said, no. And the Sahaba, the companions, other people around, his students, said, why did you give two different fatwas for the same question? He said, the first one was a mature man. And I know if he kissed his spouse, he could control himself. The second one was a young man with lots of desires and lust. If he kissed his spouse, it might lead to intercourse and he would break his fast. So I told him no, right? So this tells you that there's some control that has to be exercised. The next thing is cigarette smoking, vaping, shisha, argila. What else am I missing? You know, first of all, those things are not good habits anyways, right? And the ulama say that that's a sinful thing to do. But if you do that purposely, then that will break your fast and have kafara. Because why? Because you're intentionally taking something you don't need to take into the system, okay? The next thing is this. What about, so as you can see, the penalty is only for very few things. It's not for very many things. However, sometimes you have to break the fast, but there's no penalty. So you have to make up the day, but there's no penalty. What is that? Eating and drinking? Number one, if you eat something that's normally not eaten, so someone eats dirt, it'll break your fast, but you don't have to do kafara because it's not this what satisfies the desire. Somebody ate raw rice, right? Something like that. Next thing, breaking one's fast before Maghrib, thinking the time has entered. Okay, so I'll give you an example. SubhanAllah, they were testing the speakers at Ramadan in Jordan. When we were in Jordan, they have a loudspeaker. If you're testing the speaker and the guy's like, tuk, 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 don't try to give the adhan at Asr time, go Allahu Akbar, because you can confuse someone. Or someone had the TV playing and it was like the Mecca channel, and they called like some other they called like Fajr prayer in Mecca or something. And the adhan is going and someone in the house says, oh, I'm hearing adhan. Okay. So be very, very careful about that. Someone has their adhan set on their app to a different city, it goes off. So if you did break your fast thinking it was Maghrib time, you don't have to pray kafara because your intention was not there. Okay? All you have to do is make up that day. So you do have to make up the day. Next thing is, if it weakens a pregnant or a breastfeeding woman and the baby, right? Then in that case, you would just make up the day alone. And the same thing goes for a person who is sick and they have to break the fast. They just make it up for the day alone. Now, there's one thing that happened to me where I was fasting and I was in the West Indies because that's where my wife is from. And, for some bad reason, I said, let's go to the beach. Okay? So I went to the beach and I went inside the ocean. And I said, what's the problem? I'm just going to go up until my waist. Okay, so there's lots of space. A wave came out of nowhere and went, bam, and hit into the back of my mouth. Salt water. Did I break my fast? Did I break my fast? Who thinks I broke my fast? Put up your hand. Who thinks I did not break my fast? Okay. Actually, I broke my fast. I broke my fast. Because it's still something that ate. Now, the ulama, this is a little technical. So same thing, if you have a little brother and he's got like a super soaker water gun and he comes up to you and sprays the water gun in your mouth, even though it wasn't intentional, it'll break your fast. There's a difference, however, if it's forgetfully eating. That there is an allowance for. But somebody forces you to break a fast, or somebody says, no, you cannot fast, and they put food in your mouth, they've technically broken your fast, okay? But you just don't have to pick kafara because it was an accident. Okay, the next thing is this. A woman who is forced into sexual intercourse, does she have to pay kafara? No. Does she have to make up the day? Yes. Okay, but she does not have to pay kafara because the sin of breaking the fast was not in her heart, right? And of course, that's haram to do anyhow. So that's, sometimes we talk about things and we're not judging, we're not talking about is it halal or haram, but you understand there may be other things attached to that. Emission through kissing. So if a person has an emission that is not through intercourse, do they have to pay kafara? They break their fast, but it's not kafara. Now, what type of emission are we talking about in case people get waswas and OCD? We're talking about, for a man, we're not talking about pre-sexual fluid. We're talking about ejaculation and semen. For a woman, we're not talking about what happens when you're aroused, but what happens after climax. Okay, that's the emission we're talking about. And emission from masturbation. So masturbation breaks the fast, but there's no kafara for it because it's not the full thing. The next thing is anything else entering inside. If someone has an enema or a suppository, meaning from the anus, from the back passage, or sometimes from the front passage as well for women, does it break the fast? Yes, it does. But is there kafara? No. There's no kafara because it's not eating or drinking, but it still resembles that. An enema, what they say, enema is when you put something into the back passage and you squeeze it to put some medicine or flushing it. Now, some people get mistaken. They think that you can't do istinja during Ramadan because they think, oh, any water is going to go up. This is actually not accurate. This is a mistake. Okay? But rather, what they mean to say is anything the length of a finger. Like when an enema, when it's like a suppository, it's put deep inside. So just washing yourself for, istinja is fine. You don't have to worry about that. Nobody should be putting a finger in that area anyways, a whole finger. That would be bad. The next thing is any medicine through the nose, like you do that. I'm not talking about Vicks. That's just a smell, right? But something that has a body. You spray a nasal spray that will break your fast, but you don't have to make up kafara for it. You just make up the day itself. Put something directly into the throat without chewing it. Okay? Again, that will break your fast, but there's no kafara for it. Swallowing water during wudu or during ghusl. So one thing about ghusl is normally when you're taking a ghusl, you're supposed to take the water all the way back. But during fasting, you do not have to do that. Just shallow in the mouth, like when you take water like this, front of your mouth. You don't have to take it back if you have to do a ghusl during Ramadan. In the daytime. Of course, in the evening time, that's fine. But sometimes you're about to do a madmada, gargling, rinsing your mouth, and you accidentally drink the water. That would mean you have to repeat your fast. Okay, it breaks your fast. But what about the water that stays behind your mouth? Do you have to spit 20 times? No. You do not have to spit 20 times. Some people do that. They go like this, they're going, and they're licking their mouth everywhere, collecting this. No. You don't have to do that. Islam is easy like that, alhamdulillah. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he used to, and some people refrain. You know what happened? One person, they said, I don't want to take a risk. So I'm not going to even rinse my mouth for wudu during the fast. They ended up getting gingivitis during Ramadan because they didn't clean their mouth. You have to, there's a sunnah health benefit in that. So make sure you know about that. Once you spit once, whatever excess water is in your mouth, you can even swallow it. It's no problem because it's not part of it's part of your spit now. The next thing is women putting medicine into the private parts. It does break the fast. However, there is an opinion. For example, like a pap smear, or sometimes a woman who is pregnant will get an examination. There is an opinion, modern day opinion from a scholar in Pakistan that says no, a frontal examination of a woman will not break the fast. Why? Because now we know there is no connection between the front passage and the stomach in any way. Okay, so some of the ulama give this modern opinion. You can take that opinion. Okay, but I'm saying this is what the classical opinion was. To place anything wet into the private parts, again, same science, same thing in that question. Next thing is if you vomit a mouthful intentionally. So you put your finger inside your mouth and you try to make yourself vomit. That will break your fast if it's more than a mouthful. Okay? But if you vomit unintentionally, does it break your fast? No. So every word here is very, very purposeful. Now. Yeah. If it for sure went, yes, it'll break your fast. So that's why just keep it light. Keep it here, right? Once you spit out the water once, if you get out the excess water, that's it. Then that's fine. Or if you brushed your teeth, you rinse it out, but the flavor of that, you've got some spearmint flavor or whatever is still in your mouth, that's forgiven. It's okay, right? Yes. The question, sorry, I should repeat the question for the sister. Did you hear the questions? Sorry, you can't hear in the back, so I'll repeat the question. The first question was, if water gets in accidentally during your wudu, does it break your fast? I said, yes, it does, but only if you're absolutely sure. Sometimes people get waswasa, I think it went in. If you're not sure, don't worry about it. Your fast is fine. Just remember, when you're not sure, assume your fast is fine. It's only when you're positive. That's different. The second question was, if you have to pay kafara, can you choose between fasting for 60 days straight or feeding 60 poor people? I think everybody would choose there's a difference of opinion. Okay? In some schools of thought, like the Hanafi school, they'll say, no, you have to fast the 60 days straight. If you cannot, because of your health reasons or whatever, and there's many people who cannot take a 60-day fast, then you can pay kafara. Other opinions say, no, you can choose, right? It's funny because there was a scholar who used to say that whose opinion was that you can choose. But then the Khalifa asked, can I choose? And he said, for you, no. He said, because you're rich. If you allow the kings to break a fast and then you just pay 60 poor, how hard is it for a king to feed 60 poor people? So he said, no, for you fast 60 days straight. So there is a hikmah in that ruling. Now, if you broke your fast maybe throughout your entire teenagehood, you weren't religious. You grew up in a Muslim country, you weren't religious. So you maybe broke hundreds of fasts. Now you made tawbah. You still have to make up the fast. How many kafara do you have to do? 100 kafara? 1 kafara. This is a mercy. 1 kafara will cover over every single time you broke your fast. Alhamdulillah, it's a mercy from Allah. So you still have to make up the days, but you don't have to do 60, 60, 60, 60. No, that would be very difficult. Alhamdulillah. So next thing is if you inhale smoke intentionally. Nobody does this, but nobody goes to a barbecue and goes, or something like that. Okay, someone's smoking marijuana while you're passing by, no one says, purposely. So here's the question. If you're walking by a barbecue and you smell, or your wife or your mom is cooking something and you're smelling biryani, or she's standing over the pot and steam is coming around, and is she breaking her fast? No, because she's not intentionally inhaling it. Nobody goes into it. Some people say, I can't take a shower because the steam, I'm going to inhale. Come on. Nobody does that. But yeah, if you put a towel over your head and you go to the sink and you open the hot water and you start to clear your sinuses, that's a completely different story. Okay? Completely different story. Inserting oil or water into the ears, but again, there's a modern opinions that talk about how that's not a passage, so we talked about that, and we talked about the other things, inserting into the anus. Okay, next thing is, what does not break the fast? Number 1, if you forget that you're fasting and you eat or drink, it does not break your fast. One of my teachers, he told me I was fasting and I went and I had a full meal plus dessert. Then I realized I was fasting. So now here's the question. You come and you see somebody who is eating and drinking in Ramadan and you know they're forgetting, should you tell them, hey, listen, it's Ramadan, what are you doing? Should you tell them or not tell them? What's that? Do not tell them. Who thinks you should not tell them? Put up your hand. Who thinks you should not tell them? I'm just fake putting up my hand. Who thinks you should tell them? Put up your hand. Okay, this is what they say. If it is a young, strong, healthy person, then you should tell them, because they would want to know too. Like if I was drinking in the middle of day Ramadan, I would want somebody to tell me, hey, come on. So they don't have to make up, because they didn't even know. So it's forgiven. Okay? They can continue, and it's as though, subhanAllah, whatever you ate is as though Allah fed you and gave you drink. It give you a little boost in the middle of Ramadan. But if it's an elderly person, a sick person, and you see, mashallah, elderly person's eating and drinking in the middle of the Ramadan, you look at it, you just leave. You don't say anything to them, right? Of course, you don't actively encourage it. That's not the thing you do either, but you just don't say anything. Why? Because let Allah help them with their fast. This is a mercy from Allah. That's what they say. The next thing is this. Sometimes you have a piece of food stuck in between your teeth from suhoor time. And it gets dislodged in the middle of the day, like you feel like a little kind of, like a peanut or something, like a little piece of, like a dana, a little. Does that break your fast? Actually, they say, if it was already in your teeth from the time that you started the fast, it's as long as it is not the size of a chickpea, a dry himsa, chana, what you call. It's a very small, it's like the size of a pea. So actually that is forgiven. So let's say, for example, someone's eating, and then the adhan goes, oh God, I got to stop. So, you spit out what's remaining. Maybe you might rinse your mouth a little bit, but there's still a little bit of food. If you swallowed that, it would not break your fast, because that was already there from before and it's very small. If something like a sesame seed dissolves into your saliva and you can't taste it and it just goes away, also does not break the fast. So sometimes what happens, something comes from outside or something is there and it's just like something comes inside your mouth and dissolves. You can't even find it. That's forgiven. Yeah. Yeah, the question is, can you floss your teeth and then something comes out and you eat it back? Well, it's not good to do that, right? Even like when something comes out. But if it got dislodged and you swallowed it, it would not break the fast. It is better and superior to take it out on a tissue or something like that. But if you swallowed it, it would not break your fast. Same with salah. If you're in prayer and some little piece of food is in your teeth and you swallow it, as long as it's smaller than a pea, right, it doesn't break your fast. But it's still better to take a tissue or something and, take it out. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. A raindrop comes, a sweat from your own face comes. So basically, I have not actually read that. The ulama were not keen to start saying that rain is forgiven, because then people just stand outside like this. Because the reason why you have all this Q&A is because it's funny, because throughout the hundreds of years of the Islamic history, people would always try to get around what they have to do. Right? So, that's why, why would they even talk about putting your water up the different passages? Because they thought maybe I can try to, even up to today, people can try to wiggle around it. So the basic thing I say about rain and these types of things is, yes, standard thing is, if it goes inside your mouth, it breaks your fast if you swallow it. But if it goes inside your mouth and you spit it and you can't find it, then don't worry about it. A lot of people get waswasa about this. So anybody who has waswasa OCD, you don't worry about it. You just keep going, right? Any other questions before we move on? Okay. The next thing is, what if you forgot it's Ramadan and the person had intercourse? Hey, it's happened before. That's why the ulama talk about it. It's actually forgiven because they forgot. Okay? But once you remember, it doesn't matter where you are in your meal or in that activity, you have to stop right away. Okay? Emission due to thinking or looking. Okay? I have to mention it because this is ilm and deen. If someone has a sexual climax just because of thinking or looking, which again would be not permissible to invoke, but that would not break the fast actually. Next thing is, if you wake up after a wet dream. So someone says after Asr time, I'm going to take a nap, and they have a wet dream in the middle of the day, it does not break the fast because it was not through their own action. That's different. Next thing is this. What if you inhale smoke unintentionally? Doesn't break the fast. Steam, same thing. What if you inhale flour dust or something like that? You open something and there's a dust talcum powder. You're powdering your baby's bum when you change their diaper. Something came in, you coughed a little bit, it's fine. Unintentionally swallowing a fly or an insect. Okay? You're riding your bike and a little like mosquito gets inside your mouth, that's forgiven because neither is it food nor did you, it's forgiven, you can't stop it, right? The taste of toothpaste or medicine that you took and you spit out, that's fine. Entering medicine through the private part. Swallowing mucus or phlegm. Some people think that if the mucus, the phlegm is when you you cough something up, that's the yellow stuff. So that, if you swallow it back down, is fine because it's still inside your body. Yeah, you're not going to do this thing, and I'm just sorry for being comical, but you know where these boys, they spit and it goes like that and they bring it all the way back. That's too far. So if it comes into the edge of the lips, you're spitting out, just spit it out. Or from the nose, you're congested, you go like that, you swallow it, it doesn't break your fast. It's all within the body. There are some opinions you will see where they did not even allow the swallowing of spit. So don't get scared if you see that on TikTok or something. I'm giving you the one that's mainstream, easier to do. Yeah. Here's the question. Someone has to take an antibiotic that they cannot skip, that they have to take during the day. Can they take it without water? That would actually break the fast. But the fact that they have to take it, they would be allowed to break the fast. Right? So a person like that, they feel sinful, they feel bad. But if you have to take the medicine, you have to take the medicine. Yeah, if you can choose to take it before Fajr and then take the next dose after Maghrib, that's preferred. Same thing with an inhaler, asthma puffer. Take it outside of the prayer times. However, when it comes to an inhaler, almost all traditional opinions I've seen says the asthma inhalers will break the fast. But there is modern opinions. There is like some minority opinions. Dr. Muzammil Siddiqui from ISNA, for example, Sheikh bin Baz and Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen rahmatullahi from Saudi, they said that it does not actually break the fast because you're inhaling it. But the traditional opinions I've seen will say that breaks the fast. So you will see difference of opinion. Okay. Now, swallowing regurgitation. You burp and some acid comes up and you swallow it back down. Does not break your fast. Eye drops does not break your fast. Involuntary vomiting does not break the fast. Water entering a swimmer's ear, you go into the shower or something, that does not break the fast. And you clean your ear with a Q-tip or a stick, does not break your fast. Even though there are other madhabs, in Imam Shafi'i's madhab, if you just went like this, put something wet, like your finger, and you put it inside your ear, it breaks your fast. Okay, so now what to do if a fast is broken? Let's say you broke your fast. Does that mean, okay, go and eat? No. If you broke your fast, then you should still wait, like accidentally or purposely, then you should still not eat for the rest of the day out of respect for the month of Ramadan, right? Somebody becomes Muslim, takes their shahada in Ramadan, in the middle of the month. In the day, you should actually, they should technically not eat for the rest of the day. But be very careful about something. Once I was in another country and I was giving dawah and stuff like that, and somebody became Muslim. This is when I was a student. Somebody became Muslim in Ramadan. He used to live with his girlfriend. Na'udhu billah. But he just became Muslim. He doesn't know these things, right? He started fasting. He started getting into mashallah deen so much that he was waking me up for suhoor. He was waking me up for suhoor and he just became Muslim. And in the masjid we used to have iftar in the masjid. So in the morning he would eat suhoor by himself, then fast all day, and in the evening come with us and break fast and pray Taraweeh as well. Obviously, who do you think got angry about that? His girlfriend got very angry. And what happened? He called me after a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. He said, I think I'm going to take a break from Islam. He left Islam. Why? Because you gave him all these rules in the beginning and you made it so difficult that now his family is saying, you're not eating with me anymore, nothing's happening, you're going all night. So I was a student and I asked my teachers, I said, did I have to tell him? They said, yes, you have to tell him. But in reality, now after my studies, I realized, listen, if you meet somebody who's just become Muslim, you tell them about fasting, but let them understand how to navigate that in the future. Oh, what if they break their fast purposely? It's my sin. They're going to have to do a kafara 60 days. it's better that they do kafara 60 days than they leave Islam. So sometimes people are on the edge. You should know when you have to say something, when you don't have to say something. If you're not sure, just don't say anything. Okay. Any questions? We have one more section. This isn't intensive, so we're doing good for time. Actually, yeah. Are there any? We can deal with any other questions right now. Yes? Oh, in the box. Okay. Yeah, because then we're getting into itikaf. I have a section on itikaf, but that's not going to apply to everybody unless you want to do itikaf. Then we have hold on. We have a whole bunch of inner fasting things. Now there is a question that comes up, but what does it mean to be when someone is sick? Did we talk about that? Okay, we don't have that here. Now, if someone is sick, when do you know when you can break your fast? If it happens that it's going to cause you harm, or it's going to delay your healing, so you've got a flu or a cold, and it's going to delay your healing if you fast, or you feel too weak, then you are allowed to break your fast. So if it's going to get you sick because you know. For example, another person knows, they just know themselves, they know their body. Let's say they're diabetic or they have some condition, and I know I'm getting into a phase where I've been fasting. I know I'm starting to get dizzy. Within 1 or 2 days, I'll be in the bed. I won't be able to fast at all. You can actually stop and take a break, and then because you have medical knowledge, if you're unsure, the best thing to do is to ask a Muslim doctor, a Muslim physician who understands fasting. If you ask a non-Muslim doctor, they'll always tell you don't fast. The non-Muslim doctor will always tell you don't fast. Then you have to say, is this going to harm me? If they say, yes, it will harm you, then that's different. Or will this delay my recovery? Then that's different, right? But does that mean just because you have a little like sniffle, can you break your fast? No, right? It's when it's gonna, Okay. Yeah, so we'll go through some of these questions. How many are in Eid? I'm not sure what that means. Okay, if whoever asks it.
If anybody wants to explain a question that wasn't clear. If anybody wants to explain a question that wasn't clear, then we can give them the mic and they can add to their question, inshallah.
Okay. Someone gets late while taking sehri, suhoor, before Fajr adhan. One is in the middle of their eating and the adhan is called. What should be the right fiqh action at this time? The right action, if the time for adhan comes, you spit out what's in your mouth, maybe you rinse your mouth slightly, and then you stop your suhoor, right? So you would not continue. Yeah, if you're actually swallowing, like there's something in your throat, then you can swallow that, but not what's in your mouth, right? That's why it's good always to look for a few minutes before, just to make sure that the time isn't getting close. What should we do in Ramadan? Fast and pray in the night. Next question. What is the penalty for masturbating during fasting? There is no penalty like kafara, but there is a sin. So number one, the person gets a sin, and they have to make up that fast. So just because there's no kafara doesn't mean it's not sinful, very sinful to do that, right? But if it happened, you make tawbah, you make up that fast. Okay, that's the questions from this side. Next question. When the journey of the Isra and the Miraj started, the Prophet ﷺ and the Buraq and the angel Jibreel ﷺ, when Allah finally decided that we have to pray 5 times a day, did they fast? No, fasting came later on in the 2nd year of Hijrah. Fasting started in the Medinan period. It's a very good question. Is there? Oh, sure. Okay. Is that on YouTube or something?
No, we put a QR code in
Okay.
like a Google form.
Okay. How do you determine when it's time to start and end your fast when there are 3 masjids in your city with different adhan times? You pick which masjid you want to follow and you can stay with that. That's fine. Because there's no way that we will be able to start going out and looking with binoculars, looking outside, calculating astronomical calculations. This is beyond what we are commanded to do, right? Okay, thank you. Yes, question from the floor? Yeah, sure. Sorry. Mm. You can. You can follow that. Yes, people will say it's more precautious to avoid the difference of opinion, but sometimes there could be so much difference of opinion. So in reality, so people don't get confused, whatever you're following a authority. So at that point, your own responsibility is absolved. And the other thing I would have to say is, the better thing to do is follow a community, because then you're all doing something together. And sometimes you have this situation where the community is praying Eid and one person is saying, I'm fasting still. I was that guy when I was a student. I did that too. So what are you going to do? Go pray Eid by yourself? Doesn't make sense. So unity is actually something important, and getting confused about the differences between scholars and technical calculations, it's nothing to worry about, inshallah. Allah knows that you fasted, inshallah, right? Yeah. No, I can just scroll? Okay, thank you. Okay, now I'm going to go online. Any other questions from the floor before we go online? Yes, sister. Sure. This is why I said whichever one you choose to follow, just follow it. Yeah, because no one's going to purposely put Maghrib ahead and break everybody's fast, right? So no one is going to purposely put Fajr time after it starts. If anything, they're going to put a little before Fajr and a little bit after Maghrib. So if you want to follow that, that's your choice. But what I'm talking about is that some people get so scared that they have like 5 masjid handouts, and they've got like 3 apps, and they're all trying to calculate, today this one is later, I'm going to follow this one, and they start getting scared. So there's no need to do that. Does that make sense? Yeah, you can, but this is why they say, like after you finish your food, right, your suhoor, and the adhan goes off, like if you want to wait a little while to pray Fajr, you can. If you want to pray Fajr right away, it's still valid. Nobody can tell you didn't pray a valid Fajr, right? Because some people I know, they wake up, drink a glass of water, and they go, they go right to Fajr. So yeah, yes. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, can you follow Taraweeh? And by the way, we can talk about Taraweeh, we can talk about, everything that has to do with Ramadan, i'tikaf, all types of things. So that's a good question. Can you follow Taraweeh digitally or remotely? The answer is no, you cannot. So otherwise, I'd be following the haram every single day, right? No, you cannot do that. So, yeah.
Some people have that question around Jum'ah as well. Like you listen to, sometimes they'll live stream the khutbah. Can you then
join the prayer? Yeah. So can you live stream if you live stream the khutbah, that's good. You just listen to it. But can you pray Jum'ah in your house while remotely? The answer is no. Okay. Did that answer your question, by the way? Is that question answered? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's go online. Yes. Well, no. What happens if you wake up late? You don't have enough time to take a meal. You know what I would do is head straight to the sink, go like this, and just drink as much water as you can before the Fajr adhan goes. That's what I would do. But keep your timing with you, so you know that you're not drinking past into the time. Because if you drink into the time of Fajr, your fast is broken, right? So if you don't have enough time, and also this is not bad. Like beside your bed, keep a bottle of water, keep a date. So if you wake up and say, oh man, 10 minutes, there's no way I can make anything or anything, you can just quickly, do that. And the other thing is, I know this is not a fiqh issue, but guys, sometimes we put way too much pressure on the women of our households, that they have to get up, and they get up before everybody, and they're frying, because the husband needs fried food for suhoor. Guys, try to make it easy on the people in the house. She's doing this as a charity. She doesn't even have to do that if she does it, because I know in our culture sometimes that we see that. If she wants to do it as a sadaqah, that's good, that's fine. But try to make this a Ramadan where we help each other get more ibadah into the month. Ramadan is not a time, subhanAllah. If you were to go online to look at images, if you type Ramadan and type images, sometimes like all images of food. In fact, a non-Muslim may think that Ramadan is a food festival. Oh, this is the festival of food, right? It's completely the opposite. So in Ramadan, guys, let's try to make sure that we help each other in the house to lighten the load so everyone can have their ibadah, inshallah. Try to prepare your food from the night before, keep it covered so you don't have to heat it up. It's a better thing. I'm not saying don't eat any samosas, but I'm saying, yeah. Which dua? Which? Oh, the last witr? No. So in the month of Ramadan, doing witr as a group is something it's a good thing to do. You can do it at home by yourself too, if you want to. But Ramadan is the only time that we pray witr together, generally speaking. So if you want to do it that way, you can do it that way. Now, the other thing is people say, is witr 3 rakats? Is it 2 plus 1? People have all these questions and their debates. Whichever one you do. There's an opinion this way, there's an opinion this way, right? So this type of like kind of real madhab extremism, it's not good to spread to a community, right? And again, I had many different teachers over the years that I was studying. Some of them that were very strict on one opinion, strict on another opinion. So if somebody's part of the congregation and they only pray 8 and the congregation is praying 20, quietly you can go, no problem. You don't have to make a big thing. Come on, this is not about a debate. Same thing with witr. If the imam is praying 1 rakat witr and the Hanafis are saying, no, it has to be 3 in a row and this and that, it's not right to go and make a separate jamaat, separate group in the back of the masjid. Have a understanding that the group dynamic is more important, right? Inshallah khair. Okay, let's get back to the. Oh, sorry, you're Alhamdulillah. Okay, we're going to go through these kind of fast. We're going to go to the bottom because those are the first questions, right? Yes. Okay. So, the bottom. Do women get the same reward as praying Taraweeh in the masjid as men? We certainly hope so. I asked my teacher about this. We hope from Allah that there is a reward, for the congregational praying for women just the same as there is for men. It is important to host people and feed people. Is it more important to host and feed people during Ramadan in your home? Or is it okay to send iftar to different people's homes without inviting into your house? That's a very good question. And it's a very modern question that's come up. Because hosting is becoming less and less common. Many years ago, when I first became Muslim 20-something years ago, it was normal that you have iftar parties and everything. Now it's cutting down. It's understandable because why? Because people are getting an idea that the person who's doing all the cooking also deserves a little break. So maybe she doesn't want to do that. So maybe she tells her husband, why don't we balance it out? Why don't you spend your money? You want everybody to have iftars? You spend your money and go and send the iftar to them. That's what's happening. You can balance it. So it's not like what's more important. Once you broke their fast, you got the reward. Of course, there is a reward for hosting people in your house, but not to the point where, I skipped all my prayers just to host people. That's also not reward. That's also not a better thing to do, right? But I understand culturally, once in a while, you're going to have an invitation where you couldn't do everything you wanted to do. Does that answer the question about that? I hope it does. Right? So whether you send food, whether you host people, it's fine. It's keep a balance between those things. When I was younger, 13, 14, fasting was farther upon me, but due to a school trip, I purposely missed the fast. I've already made it up, but is there something more I need to do? This is a good question. Same thing comes up for exams. Same thing comes up for if you broke your fast in the middle of the day, you have to do a kafara. But what if you never started fasting at all? You didn't have the intention to fast. Like, I have an exam. I have a school trip. I'm not going to fast today. Technically speaking, you don't have to do a kafara because you never started fasting. The kafara is only when you break the fast. So if you're not going to fast one day, which is sinful still, it's not good to do, but look, I have an MCAT exam. I'm not going to do it. No scholar I've seen says, yeah, go ahead, break your fast. But you have an 8-hour MCAT, LSAT exam, whatever, fasting makes you dizzy, you can't, then just don't begin the fast that day. At least you won't pay kafara. It's worse to break a fast that you start than to not start at all, right, in that sense. But that's not a permission to go on a school trip and miss your fast. It's just the lesser of two evils. Can you take vitamins or caffeine pills after suhoor time? No, you cannot. Is it sinful? Yes. Do I have to make up my missed fast due to menstruation in Shawwal? before doing the 6 days of Shawwal. Oh, that's after Ramadan. So after Ramadan, does a woman have to make up the fast of menstruation before she does the 6 nafil fasts of Shawwal? There's different opinions. Some say you can combine the intention. Others say you can do the nafil because the Ummahatul Mu'mineen, when did they used to make up their Ramadan fast? All the way the next year in Sha'ban. So they used to wait right before Ramadan to make up the fast. Is that? Oh, that's much easier. Thank you. Okay, and if any follow-up questions come from the floor, please let me know. Okay, next things. What are the etiquettes of breaking the fast with the family? Is it appropriate for everyone to make their du'as out loud and distract others? Well, I guess the person feels distracted. So in reality, your du'a, you can do a du'a out loud, but you should not be so distracting that you're distracting other people. If you're doing like father of the house is saying, okay, everybody, oh Allah, please accept our fast, taqabbal siyamana wa salatana, or he's saying the du'a out loud to remind everyone, Allahumma laka sumtu wa ala rizqi aftartu. That's okay, that's fine. Okay? It's also, some people do this practice right before the fast breaks for a few minutes, you see them. That's okay, that's no problem, right? But generally speaking, the adab is to keep things quiet so that people can have that time. But if somebody in the house wants to do something collectively, don't make an issue of it as well, right? And if somebody doesn't join in your dua, don't say, oh, this person is disrespecting the dua, imam is making dua and everybody's there and you're off on your own. That's fine, people can do what they want to do as long as you don't disturb other people. Next thing is, do you have to cover your head when reading the Quran? For example, short sleeve and PJs resting in the bed. Is it acceptable? You do not have to cover your head when you are reading Quran, but it's a matter of etiquette and adab. So in the same way, can I read the Quran while I'm in shorts and no t-shirt? No, you're not going to do that, right? So same thing for a sister. If she doesn't have a head covering, it's not like wajib or sinful to do that, but it's an adab and etiquette to do that. And if you're in a state of just you're naturally how you are, or if it's in an undressed state. There's a difference, right? There's a difference. So sometimes there's things that are adab and etiquette, right? Imam Nawawi said a man should also be covering his head while reading the Quran. But is it required? No, it's not required, right? Okay, do you continue the fast if you get your period halfway through the day? No. Then at that point, you get your period halfway through the day, you do not have to, you can go eat and drink at that point. But what happens? You should eat and drink discreetly. So it's not good that you're seeing people openly eating and drinking in the middle of the Ramadan. Oh, I'm not fasting because no, you can go and quietly eat. But also, unfortunately, in our cultures, some of our cultures, namely the Indo-Pak subcontinent, unfortunately, you have this thing where the daughter can't even tell her father or her brother she's not fasting. So she has to pretend to wake up in the middle of in Ramadan during her period for suhoor. Bhai kya sochega? What's the brother gonna think? He's gonna know that you have your period. Astaghfirullah. Come eat sehri. Well, you don't have to eat. So you don't have to do that. How come Baji is not is not fasting? Educate your boys that women have periods. It's okay. It's not a gandi baat. It's not okay. That way you do not oppress them with having to fast when Allah tells them they don't have to fast. Right? Sorry, I'm a little bit hard on the cultural thing. I know, but when we have daughters, we know that they don't appreciate this when they find out, right? Okay, is fasting at any stage of pregnancy safe? So this goes back to medical judgment. This is not my job, but once you feel that it is not safe or advantageous, you do not have to fast, or you can break your fast. Some scholars will say, no, try until you know. But others will say, what's the point of fasting until you get to the time where you're dizzy or you have contractions? At that point, it's too late. Or, it's not good to push yourself. So you have to make that judgment for yourself. I have heard a scholar who is also a physician say that he feels that it's actually leans towards fasting, pregnant women not fasting. Because you don't know what the effect is happening. Sometimes you could feel fine, but you don't know. Sometimes maternal nutrition is not good enough. Are you eating everything you should during Fajr, Suhoor, and Iftar? So if you're balancing it in such a way, you're getting your hydration, getting your sleep, that's good. But if you're in a household where you're not being fed properly, then that's you have to consider that for yourself. Should you stop eating 10 minutes before you begin fasting? It's not required to. If you want to, you can do that. Or the sunnah is to delay it and take it right up to the time without going over. Can intention for the makeup, now this is not Ramadan, we're talking about making up fasts. So in Ramadan, you cannot make up a past fast. You can only fast for Ramadan. But what about now, until Ramadan? Can an intention be for a makeup be changed? Can intention for makeup obligatory fast be changed? That is, one will not fast if one wakes up before Fajr, but fears not. Yeah. So here's the thing. If you say, I'm going to make up my fast tomorrow, the broken fast, and then right before Fajr you wake up and you're like, I don't have enough time to eat, you can change your mind. That's not a problem. But if you said, you know what, I'm gonna make up my fast tomorrow that I missed last Ramadan, and you miss Fajr, so you still can wake up and fast because you had an intention before you went to sleep. Make sense? Okay. If someone has a medical problems and he cannot fast, must they pay fidya? That's a good question about fidya. And this is an important thing to talk about. Fidya is when you cannot fast or you're too old to fast and you do not expect to recover from your sickness. Then you pay what they call fidya as a ransom. Instead of the fast, you pay a certain amount of money. Okay? That for every day that you miss. Sometimes people have different opinions and they think, oh, if I miss fast, do I have to pay fidya? No. Or if I'm sick, it's only if you never hope to recover. Like, so you have a chronic condition that you cannot fast. That person pays fidya. You're so elderly you cannot fast. That person pays fidya. But a lady was pregnant and she missed, I think my wife missed like 10 years of fast or something like that. Okay? 10 years of fast. Feeding pregnant like that. So can she pay fidya, say forget it? No. You have to make up even if it's hundreds of fasts. But remember, you don't do it all in one day or in 1 year. You do fasting Mondays. You do it over a course of your whole life. Yes, if you get to the point, but don't be scared. See, some people feel very, very depressed. Oh, I've got so many fasts to make up. What am I going to do? Listen, don't. Just do it gradually according to your health. If you get to the point where you're so old or you get sick and you cannot, then you pay fidya, no problem. And if you die trying and you have outstanding fasts, then remember, Allah sees that you tried. Even if it's gradual, you had the intention. So you try gradually, but don't make that a sense of a burden. Making up a fast is a blessing for you because you get reward for even making it up. So Allah is giving you back that opportunity, right? And if someone dies and they have in their will, then they can even pay fidya out of their inheritors can pay the fidya, their offspring can pay the fidya, right? Okay, next question. Any questions from the floor? Sure. Why not? Yeah, no, we should. That's a very good question. See, one of the things, the reason why I said why not is because one thing about fiqh is we should not make our intention, the way that we ask a question should not be thinking, I can't. Because that assumes a negative, like, is my fast, like for example, somebody say, will my prayer not be accepted? Right? Is my fast invalid? It kind of implies that you think it might be, and it is. Things are permissible until proven impermissible. So yes, iftar is a great time to give dawah to people, right? Because what happens, and I'm telling you, before I became a Muslim, I tried fasting. Why? Because friends around me are fasting. I'm in U of T Scarborough, and so sometimes, and you know what somebody said, is another brother who became Muslim. He said, I tried fasting, and then I decided I'm going to get rid of all the, even though he's not Muslim, I'm going to get rid of the haram things, pork, alcohol, this and that. Even in Ramadan, they just decided to do that. And that, he says, I felt like that cleansed my heart to accept Islam. So very good question. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, sorry, I thought you were asking a question. I travel a lot, and many times I have to stay in another country for 4 or 5 days or more. So actual traveling day is only when I'm flying or driving? No. So it means, let's say for example, you're going from here to Jordan, here to Pakistan. Is it only when you're on the flight over that you don't have to fast? No. Whenever you're abroad, out of town, for less than 15 days in one place, you're a traveler. You shorten your prayers, you don't have to fast. But sometimes you go to a place and it's easy to fast. Like you're going back home and you're in your family's house. So you're a traveler, you don't have to fast, but if you decide to do it, it counts as the Ramadan fast. Okay? Was there a follow-up question? Sorry. No, so it's where you and your family actually live. So when I go to my parents' house, like back home, I'm not technically a resident, even if I was born and grew up in that house, according to one opinion, because if I've moved somewhere else, like where does your family live now? Your wife, your children, your spouse, where's your stuff? If that's in a different place, then that's your residence. When you come back home, you're a traveler in that sense. Other opinions may say, no, that's your ancestral home, so you treat it like your local. So if you take that opinion, but it's easier to take the opinion of being a traveler when you're visiting another country because you're just not as comfortable. It makes complete sense, right? Okay. I have a baby who I feed and it drains my energy. I also have previous years of pending fasts left. So probably 10 to 15 fasts per year for the last 8 years. So around 100 total. Can I feed the poor or just do them when my baby grows up? Yes, you can wait until your baby grows older. So like I said, my wife has many, many fasts because of our kids growing up. So don't worry, there'll be a time when you won't be feeding, you'll have time, then you can make them up gradually. Sister, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay the fidya, and you cannot actually pay the fidya for that right now. Okay? What are some spiritual ways to maximize the benefits of Ramadan? I think you're going to have other talks about maximizing Ramadan, inshallah. So the best thing to do though is remember one thing. You're doing this for Allah. Don't become obsessed with the rules. Now this is funny. People ask me, I'm teaching fiqh, but why am I saying this? This is to know, and then you don't think through fiqh rules. You think through your heart with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes I get these, people who have OCD and they're just so, oh my gosh, I don't know. And they're like crying. Say, no. You learn the rules, but when you're driving, you go to driving school, but when you're driving, you're not thinking about the rules. It's natural. That's how you should be with fasting and prayer. It comes naturally because you learned it before. And this is the advantage of learning the rules before, so you don't have to wake up in the middle of the night in Ramadan and start to text every single imam that you know because you learned the rules from before. And if you're unsure, take it easy, relax. You can get in touch, inshallah. Okay, I think those are, if those are all the questions. Are there any other topics that we did not cover that somebody, actually there's more coming in. Because of medical issues, one does not fast. Can they still do i'tikaf? Yes, you can do i'tikaf. I'tikaf, that's a good question because one of the conditions of i'tikaf is fasting. Yeah, I mean, look, in this there are cases where if you slept in the masjid for the sake of Allah, is Allah not going to see that you're doing that for His sake? This is where we sometimes realize that if you cannot do everything, don't leave everything either. Of course, somebody says, oh, I can't spend all 10 nights in i'tikaf, but I can just come and spend the night alone. Technically, it's not an i'tikaf, but for a momentary nafil i'tikaf, that's what it is. And if we even spend this time, like for example, this time that we're spending in the masjid, right now, if we say, oh Allah, I intend i'tikaf. What does that mean? I'm staying here for your sake, to worship you. We count that counts as a nafil i'tikaf. So you can still do that, right? Let's see. Okay, the amount that you pay for fidya, you can have local masjids, or you can pay in Pakistan, you can pay here. It doesn't matter where you pay, it counts. Even if it's much cheaper in another country, that's fine. Okay, other than that, I think that my husband withdraws from me in Ramadan. He does not fulfill my physical needs outside of the hours of fasting. Is it sinful for me to masturbate to fulfill my natural desires? It gets harder for me to focus. Is he being sinful for this? Should the angels not curse him too? He gets overly involved in the masjid work and gets ignored. Brothers, men, this is very important, and females. You have to look out for each other's needs in Ramadan. It is going to be hard, but you have to schedule timings. It's very important to meet. Allah Himself gave that permission to get together. And He actually said, now go and have relations with your spouse in the month of Ramadan. So spouses should not be getting frustrated. A husband who's always in the masjid, mashallah, front row of the masjid, staying to the end, doing qiyam al-layl, and his wife is saying, I have needs that need to be fulfilled, that man is sinful. It is more reward to go home and do the fard of fulfilling your wife's needs than to stay and do qiyam al-layl in the masjid. Okay? So whoever had to hear that, That's very important. Will it become sinful for you to masturbate? Yes, that is still a sin to do, but you should actually consult a scholar in your case, okay? Because it's not something, just because this is not happening doesn't mean you do this as well, right? But this is something where there needs to be some counseling and some closer questions. I'm on Instagram. You can ask me questions privately if you want, or go to Ask an Imam in that case. Okay. That should be the end of it, inshallah. Any other questions? Yep. If I have 7 to 8 fasts from last year's Ramadan, do I have to fulfill them and make them up before this year's Ramadan? No, you don't. It's better if you do. It's better if you do. But do you have to? No. Your Ramadan will be valid. No, you still have to make them up. You get it? So once you miss them, you'll always have to make them up. But it's sometime in your life you have to make them up until the time, the end. You know. If you start fasting again for health reasons, if it's going to do you harm such that a Muslim doctor will say it is physically harmful for you to fast, then you can, take your breaks and as you need it, or you're healing from something and it's going to delay your healing. Or you have a chronic illness, you know from experience, person with diabetes or something, that's different. But if it's like, because it's going to mess up a workout routine or something, you can't do that, right? So if you have a specific condition, we can talk about that, consult after. All right? Inshallah, no problem. Okay, if there's aren't any other questions, okay. I mean, we have other things that we can get to, like the inner dimensions, but I think you guys will have other talks on the inner dimensions of fasting, correct? Okay. Well, Jazakallah khairan. Thank you very much. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you. Jazakallah khairan. It's a very good crowd, mashallah. Sorry, brother. Your name again? Saad. Saad. Yeah. We met last time.